Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology, and I get a lot of questions about avoidant attached individuals, specifically dismissive avoidant, but this also is for fearful avoidance. This particular aspect that a lot of people ask me in the comments or just in general, if you had an avoidant ex and you guys are no longer together, was that person ever bonded to you? Did they ever care about you? And the answer is most likely yes. Avoidant individuals do not involve themselves in friendships, situationships, romantic relationships, marriages, unless you meant something, especially if it's a long-term situation. Most of the time, they don't waste their time with things that don't matter to them. Avoidant individuals do not do that. And if they were with you for a very long time, of course, you meant something to them. This is true for both dismissive and fearful avoidance. This does not really depend on either attachment. Both of them do this. They both are really particular about who they let in their life. If the person is fearful, avoidant, and they're leaning anxious, sometimes they may stay longer than they want simply because they're afraid to speak up for themselves. But most of the time, avoidant individuals who are dismissive attached or fearful leaning dismissive, they stayed as long as they felt necessary. And when they felt it was no longer valuable to them, they left, or you left them even though they felt very bonded and connected to you. Okay, so that's kind of important to recognize. But I also wanted to go over 6 reasons as to how you know that they were bonded to you. Now, these are not really, not every single person will hit all of these points. They're just to elaborate some of the ways you can tell so that when you look over your marriage or your relationship with your partner, your ex-partner, you can at least recognize what truly happened and have a more realistic perspective. A lot of people, and this is common, especially with anxious individuals, you think very negatively about your past relationships and you feel like maybe your partner never cared about you or there was never anything. And sometimes people think what your partner says, you have a lot of negative assumptions about it instead of taking things for what they are. Avoidant individuals tend to be pretty simple in that way. Usually, if it is the way it is, that's all it is. If they were with you and they were married to you, they like you. They want to be there. It's pretty black and white for avoidant individuals in that sense. And anxious individuals, what they think about is they always try to look at the negative perspective of anything because they're afraid to be abandoned. So by doing that so often, you actually get a very negative skew and version of the relationship. And sometimes you guys walk away preemptively because of that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is something to be aware of that's very different from avoidant individuals. So the very first way to know and recognize if your avoidant partner, your avoidant ex, was bonded to you in that marriage or relationship is they were with you for a long duration. Now, this is dependent on the perspective of what you perceive as long and also what they perceive as long. But a good way to recognize what really is a long-term duration is look at their previous relationships or length of relationships. Often, if your length is similar to those or even longer, even if it's a little bit shorter, but around that duration, that typically means that it was a pretty long duration. It was valuable. Now, this does not mean that if you were a short-term duration that you meant nothing to them. That's not what it means. But typically, length does signify something for avoidant individuals. Not all the time, but definitely. The next one is they shared their vulnerabilities with you. Now, this one can be tricky because it probably didn't feel like that to you because you were probably expecting other things as well, or you were expecting a higher frequency of this. But avoidant individuals rarely open up to anybody. They don't open up to even the closest people to their life, like their brother, sister, mom, dad. Like they don't open up to really anybody. And so if they have opened up about personal stories, maybe fears, childhood pain, or just good memories, this usually means they felt pretty safe with you. And of course, it means they were pretty strongly bonded to you. The next one is they engaged in conflict even from an emotional standpoint. Now, this one is tricky because avoidant individuals do shut down from conflict, but, and I'm just being honest with you, okay? Even if they get upset or irritated, that means they have some emotional engagement. Now, I'm not saying that it's good that your partner yelled at you. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. So please, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that avoidance, when they don't care, they just don't care. They will not have an emotion. You can say whatever you want and it'll bounce off them. It really does not matter. They could care less. And so if there is any sort of emotional reaction, good or bad, they care. Now, I don't know if that means they're going to stay with you, but it does mean that they care. Now, in a positive way, engaging in conflict, listening to you, having disagreements, agreeing to disagree, trying to find a deeper understanding, that's obviously a sign they care about you. But some avoidants are not always there yet in their healing journey. So it could just be gauging their emotional reaction still signifies a bond with you. Because like I had mentioned, if you didn't matter to them, they would have like zero emotion towards you. They're like that. A lot of avoidant individuals, unfortunately, this can be a very cold perspective. A lot of people might think this comes across as cold, but if you're not valuable to them, they will just cut you off. Like that's not a matter to them. And sometimes that could be because a person hurt them. Avoidant individuals, they do that in relationships. You may mean a lot to them, but they will cut you off if maybe they feel like it's not going anywhere, or they feel like you disrespected them. But often if they keep you for a long time and then they cut you off, that's different than if they talk to you for like a couple of days and then they cut you off. That might be that maybe they don't really have any feelings. I'm just being honest. The next one is they made room for your vulnerabilities. Now this one, again, a lot of people may not recognize that this is truly what's happening, but avoidant individuals, they do something that I perceive as like a quieter compromise. Their compromising is not always obvious because a lot of people don't really understand how avoidants operate. And it's no one's fault, but if you work with them, if you are one, you can really recognize that a lot of the processes that go through your, how you converse with others, how you communicate with others, there is a process in your mind and from your own perspective, not even unconsciously and subconsciously, it's also consciously because you edit a lot of things, right? And so some individuals, anxious individuals, come across this way, which is not a bad thing, but it's something that avoidant individuals just don't do. They will just say whatever they feel like right away, from their brain and out their mouth, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's actually probably a good thing. Avoidant individuals, sometimes it's like in their brain and it's like really slow and they're like still trying to figure it out. Then maybe they like edit it and change it a little bit because they're like, no, if I say that sounds a little harsh. I don't want to say it that way. Or maybe that doesn't sound right. Or maybe that's not how I feel. Let me think about it. And so a lot of times they process things a little bit slower. And when they make room for your vulnerability, that process is also very similar because that's how they process things themselves. And so let's say you're feeling upset about something, they may give you time to process, or they may offer you a solution because they think that you're struggling with the process like they do. When they're feeling an emotion, they're like, okay, what do I do? What is this? What's the answer? So they may offer those types of solutions. And you may find that to be something that you might think they're dismissing you. But they just do that because that's how they operate in their world. But they still are making room for your vulnerabilities. Another way to gauge this, which does not have to do with their internal process, is they may show some form of like guilt or hurt when you feel sad. Like when you show your vulnerabilities, they really want to show up, especially after you cry or you're upset, because they just don't want to hurt you and they didn't mean it. Oftentimes they didn't mean it. And so they really do honor how you feel, but it doesn't seem like it because it's probably not as extreme as maybe you guys would want, but they did make those sacrifices for your relationship. It's a sacrifice because they wouldn't do it otherwise, right? The next one is they do make progress from closeness. From the beginning comparison, like the beginning, they were less close, to towards the end of the relationship, you can actually see, okay, they were a lot closer to you at the end of the relationship than they were at the beginning. This is very important to recognize because a lot of individuals, anybody, but especially, I would say anxious, especially anxious individuals, they get a little bit of tunnel vision. Anxious, preoccupied individuals are very focused on what they're not getting, their needs not getting met. And the reason why is because when they were younger, they were neglected emotionally and their parents did not show them immediate care right away. And so genuinely truthfully, and this is obviously based on research, but you can look at it in children, you can see it in adults. The child, when they were a kid, they had to basically cry out to get their needs met. Their parent would not do it otherwise. And so they had to be hyper-focused on their needs. And so looking at that from an adult and an interpersonal relationship standpoint, you might be doing that, right? You're noticing, okay, I'm still not getting this need met. You're not paying attention to all the needs you are getting met. So it's important to look at it. Did they actually make more progress in the relationship from the beginning to the end? Likely they probably did. And that is obviously a sign they were bonded to you, because otherwise they just wouldn't do that, right? And the last one, and avoidant individuals do this, but it might not be from an emotional standpoint. So I'll try and explain it or give an example. They're present during the hard times. This is not always the case if it's an emotional hard time. Avoidant individuals are it's hard for them. But let's say you broke your arm. They are totally fine with dropping work and rushing you to the hospital or wherever you need to go. Avoidant individuals, they do that. That's how they operate. Now, maybe it's not the same if you're upset that your sister said something really mean to you, but it really, really hurt you. They might not know really what to do with that. But if it's a physical thing, it's tangible, they understand. And so they will drop a lot of things to be present during those hard times. So in conclusion, I do want to mention, if you had an avoidant ex and you were you did have some connection, romantic, friendship, whatever, but typically it's going to be romantic, of course they were bonded to you. And I know that's hard to believe because they probably didn't act like it, but there was a bond. And I actually feel like one thing a lot of people don't do is you have to trust yourself more than other people in this perspective. I know it sounds strange, but you probably know somewhere inside they did have a bond with you. If you remove all the negativity, all the triggers, all the fears, you know somewhere, most of you guys do. Trust that instead of hearing the negativity. I don't know if this means anything for your relationship with this person going forward, but it may provide you with closure, and it also helps you to become more secure, because secure individuals are able to look at both good and bad, and it allows your mind to be more flexible emotionally, okay? I hope this video is helpful. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.